When I turned 65, I threw a party for the family and no one came. I remember standing in my dining room, heart pounding with anticipation as I read those words over and over in my head. My name is Margaret Harper, and this was meant to be my crowning celebration. 65 years of life, love, and countless memories all gathered around one table. For 3 weeks, I'd pored over every detail, the perfect shade of napkins to match my navy blue dress, the delicate pearl buttons that Michael always said made me look elegant, the fresh roses I'd arranged myself one by one. I set 8 place cards in my best handwriting and polished the silver until it gleamed in the afternoon sun. In the oven, a roast browned to perfection, and on the counter a chocolate cake waited, its frosting still warm from the piping bag. At 6 o'clock, I flicked on the candles, their flame dancing against the crystal glasses. By 6:30, not a soul. I checked my watch again at 70 and again at 7:30 as the oven timer chimed the roast, now cooling the cake's surface uncut. My phone lay silent. Each passing minute felt like a hammer blow to my chest. I, who had been everyone's anchor, was abandoned in my own home. I sank into the head chair, staring at the empty seats draped in pink peonies and eager anticipation. The world outside carried on, but in that room time stood still, and so did I, drowning in the ache of being forgotten. I lifted my phone from the table where it lay like a guilty secret, my fingers brushing the screen as if hoping it might spring to life with a surprise call. "Maybe they're just running late," I whispered to the empty room, repeating it as a mantra to calm the tightening in my chest. I tapped the green phone icon and dialed Michael's number. The call rang once, twice, then cut off. I tried again for Sarah. Same silence. With a trembling breath, I unlocked Facebook, scrolling through my feed, until a fresh post caught my eye, a shining photo of Sarah, in a white sundress, her arm around Michael's waist, both glowing against the turquoise sea. My heart lurched, and I nearly dropped the phone. I swallowed hard, wiping a bead of sweat from my palm. The caption read, "Living our best life on the Mediterranean, had family vacation, blessed." Scrolling down, I saw Jack squealing as he built a sandcastle. Lily's golden curls plastered by the salty breeze as she chased seagulls. There they were, all of them, smiling, laughing, toasting glasses of bubbly sunrise mimosas. I stared, disbelief and fury warping together so sharply it felt like shards of glass. I propped the phone on the table edge, glaring at that carefree scene. How could they, my own son, my daughter-in-law, my grandchildren, betray me so cruelly? 3 weeks of planning, 3 weeks of anticipation, and not one message to say they wouldn't come. Sarah. Michael. "This was my birthday," I whispered, voice cracking. "How could you choose this over me?" Trembling, I tapped Michael's name and called again, my knuckles white. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Mom, everything okay?" His tone was light casual, even though I could imagine him lounging on deck chairs, shades perched at a jaunty angle. I couldn't speak at first. I blinked back tears, trying to form words. "Where are you?" I finally managed, voice small. "I'm here," he said gently. "On the ship. We left early this morning. Sarah wanted to surprise you." "Surprise me?" I echoed, the anger blazing up from somewhere deep. "You planned this cruise for my birthday, and you didn't tell me." There was a pause. Then softly, "I'm sorry, Mom. Sarah thought it was last week. She said she told you. She didn't tell me I cut in standing so quickly the chair scraped the floor. Not once." My legs felt unsteady beneath me, as though every step had been erased without warning. I shut my eyes against the pain. The table was set. The candles were lit. The cake was, I know, Michael said. His voice broke, almost cracked beneath the weight of his guilt. I'm sorry. I should have called. I just forgot. Forgot. The word echoed like a slap. I pulled the phone away, forced myself to breathe. How long were you planning this? I asked, voice rising. Did you plan to leave me alone on my birthday all along? There was silence. Then I didn't think, Mom. Please don't cry. His words reached me through the thin veil of my fury and my grief, and for a moment I wavered. I closed my eyes, and the memory of my dining room returned. 8 polished plates waiting at empty seats. The roast now cold in the oven, the cake uncut. I could almost taste the chocolate frosting on my tongue, bitter now without the sweetness of celebration. I put a hand to my stomach, which felt hollow. You didn't think I repeated louder this time. You didn't think your mother's 75th. No, I'm sorry, 65th birthday mattered. My voice caught. I spent weeks on this. I bought the dress, Michael. I arranged the flowers. I told everyone I was looking forward to seeing you. I know, he said again, softer. And I'm so sorry. It was a mistake. His apology felt both genuine and insufficient. Can we talk when I get back? He asked. I'll make it up to you. I pressed my lips together, blinking back tears. You'd better, I said, and ended the call. The screen went black, but the laughter on that posted cruise photo felt alive in my mind. I stared at the glass tabletop, running a fingertip along a tiny ring stain. I thought of Lily's giggle, Jack's childish grin. They were there, my grandchildren, yet here I was, alone in the darkening dining room. Anger began to melt into something deeper heartbreak. I sank to the floor beside my chair, the phone still clutched in my hand. My navy blue dress, the one Michael said was elegant, felt heavy on my shoulders, a reminder of how much effort I'd poured into this night. The candles, now stubs of wax, flickered once more before guttering out, and the room fell silent. I curled my legs beneath me, pressing my forehead against the cool edge of the table. How could they do this to me? I whispered. My own family. My voice was small in the vast emptiness of the house. My phone screen lit again as notifications rolled in, likes, hearts, emojis on Sarah's post, but none were for me. I sat there long after the sun dipped below the horizon, until the only light was the soft glow of the refrigerator in the kitchen. I imagined them swaying on deck, the ocean stretching to infinity, the world bright and full of joy everywhere but here. When I finally stood and walked to the oven, I shut the door on the cold roast and turned off the oven light, as if extinguishing the last flicker of hope. I wrapped the cake in plastic and slid it into the fridge, the cool air replacing the fire in my chest with numbness. Then I turned off the lights, leaving the empty dining room behind my footsteps echoing in the quiet house, and carried the ache of that cruel discovery up the stairs with me. That night, long after the lights were out in the rest of the house, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. My mind rewound through the past year, and it wasn't long before other absences came into focus. At first, I convinced myself they were just oversights, misunderstandings, maybe even forgetfulness. But now, each memory felt like a knot tightening in my chest. I remembered Michael's 40th birthday brunch last spring. I'd driven across town with my famous lemon bars tucked carefully in a cake box. I knocked on the door at 10, ready with a hug and a smile. Sarah answered, looking apologetic. "Oh, Mom, I'm so sorry," she'd said, stepping back. They moved it to next weekend. Something about a scheduling conflict. I peered down the hallway and saw through the living room window a table piled with pastries and a half-dozen guests laughing inside. I'd stood on the porch, feeling foolish, my lemon bars still warm in my hands, while Jack waved at me from behind Sarah's skirt. When I called Michael later, He sounded genuinely surprised. "Mom, they did move it. Everyone thought you knew. But I did know I was the one who had RSVP'd." Then there was Lily's first day of kindergarten. I'd asked Sarah 3 times about drop-off time. "We're going early," she'd told me cheerfully. "It'll be fun to watch her settle in." I showed up at 7:30 only to find the classroom door locked. The teacher's aide peeked out and said, "Miss Harper, the book reading starts at 8:30. You must be early." I remembered racing to my car, leaving behind the flower bouquet I'd carried, heart pounding, as I watched the other parents gather inside. Later, I learned from Michael that Sarah and the kids had arrived right at 8:30, and they'd waved at me through the window, but I hadn't been inside to see. And Christmas, my favorite holiday, had become a year-long ache. 2 winters ago, I'd wrapped up handmade ornaments for each grandchild, tied with velvet ribbons, and bundled into a basket for the family. I arrived at the door with carols on my lips, only to find Sarah greeting me at the curb. "Michael's office holiday party ran late," she said, voice tight. "We'll do it tomorrow." I watched their taillights fade down the street. The next day, I found a flood of photos on Instagram. Dozens of people gathered in their living room. Stockings hung, a feast laid out. Everyone smiling, everyone except me. At the time, I shrugged it off. People get busy, weddings and work events overlap, but now, after the birthday party that never was, and the cruise that replaced it, my mind refused to soothe itself. I opened my phone and scrolled through my calendar, tapping on past events. Each entry brought a sting. Lily's dance recital, family barbecue, Easter egg hunt at the park. Looking back, I was never there. When I messaged, I got excuses. Changed location, rescheduled. "Sorry, you must not have gotten the update." And yet, when I checked social media, I saw their smiling faces, their lives moving forward, just not with me. I sat up in bed and pressed my palms to my eyes. I must be imagining things, I whispered, though the proof glowed on my screen. My phone lit up with another, like on Sarah's cruise post. My fingers hovered over the unlock button, but I forced myself to set it down. I didn't want to scroll anymore. Instead, I closed my eyes and let the memories swirl. I thought of my own mother long gone and how I had treasured every moment with her. I remembered her gentle voice encouraging me to embrace life's celebrations. I had carried that lesson into my own motherhood, hosting birthday parties, graduations, holiday dinners, anything to keep family close. And yet, now here I was, cut out of the very moments I had spent decades nurturing. A soft knock on my door startled me. I blinked, sliding out of bed. Michael's face appeared in the hallway, the early morning light outlining concern in his eyes. "Mom," he said quietly, stepping in. He wore pajama pants and a rumpled shirt, as if he hadn't bothered to change after returning home from the cruise. "I thought I'd find you awake." I sank onto the edge of the bed. "I'm sorry," I said without looking up, "for blasting you last night." My voice trembled. "I'm just hurt." He sat next to me, careful not to crowd my space. "I am too," he admitted. "I let Sarah plan everything. I should have been thinking about you." His hand hovered over mine, unsure whether to offer comfort. I let him squeeze my fingers gently. "When did we start missing each other?" I asked, voice small. "I feel like I've been erased." Michael hesitated. "It got tangled, Mom. Between her work schedule and the kids' activities, I lost track of my own calendar." He brushed a loose strand of hair behind my ear. "But that's on me. I'm sorry." I closed my eyes, tasting both the apology and the ache it couldn't erase. "This isn't just a calendar problem," I murmured. "It's deliberate." He stiffened beside me. "No," he said, eyes widening. "Sarah would never do that on purpose." but the truth throbbed in my veins. I'd spent my whole life believing in my family's love, and now I realized that love had been compartmentalized, assigned to a digital album I wasn't allowed to open. My heart pounded, a new clarity taking hold. These weren't accidents. They were calculated omissions. I lifted my chin, opening my eyes. The pale dawn cast shadows on Michael's face, and I saw the flicker of doubt there too. "Look at your phone," I said softly. "Look at the pattern." He fished his phone from his pocket and unlocked it. Together, we scrolled through his posts. Invitations I never received, comments about events. We're all so excited about pictures where I was conspicuously absent. He swallowed. How did I not see this? Tears slipped down my cheeks. "Because I didn't scream it," I said. I smiled and said it must be a mistake. I never wanted to believe my family would leave me out. He pulled me into an embrace. "I'm so sorry, Mom. I promise you'll never be left out again." For the first time, I felt the weight begin to lift. Not because I believed he could fix everything, but because I had stopped doubting myself. The pattern was real, the exclusion intentional, and now that I saw it, I knew I could no longer ignore it. I held my son close, breathing in his familiar scent, letting the tremors in my heart slow. The emptiness I'd carried would not vanish overnight, but at least now I stood on solid ground, eyes open to the truth. And with that truth, I felt something else flicker alive, the quiet, fierce knowledge that I would not be erased. I woke in the dark hours, heart pounding in a rhythm that felt more urgent than sleep. The moonlight slanted through my curtains, painting silver stripes across the bedspread. I lay still for a moment, listening to the muffled hum of the refrigerator and the distant tick of the hallway clock. Grief was a weight in my chest, sharp, insistent, impossible to ignore. But beneath it, something else stirred, a quiet, unwavering resolve. I reached for my phone on the nightstand. Its screen glowed with notifications I'd ignored all afternoon. Another round of likes on Sarah's Mediterranean cruise photos, comments from friends I barely recognized. My thumb hovered over the Facebook app, and I hesitated, remembering the ache it had brought me. Then I tapped it open. The first image was the same idyllic deck shot: Sarah, Michael, Jack, Lily, all beaming under the sun. But I scrolled past down through weeks, months of posts. I saw lunch dates I wasn't invited to, children's recitals. I wasn't there to applaud weekend getaways I hadn't packed for. Each photo was accompanied by playful captions. "Best day with my girl. Can't wait to celebrate Dad's birthday again next week. Family fun day. Love these two. Love these two." I felt a bitter laugh rise in my throat. Love these two without me. My fingers shook as I tapped each post, noting the dates and times. There was the 4th of July, picnic balloons and burgers. Jack's face smeared with ketchup. Lily's pigtails dancing in the breeze, yet no hint that I'd stood outside the fence waving as they skipped into the park. There was the Halloween parade with Jack's homemade robot costume, and Lily's fairy princess wings, shared in a gallery of a dozen photos, none with me holding their coats. There was even Valentine's Day heart-shaped pancakes, a mother-daughter selfie, no grandmother in sight. I paused at a post from last November. Thankful for family, it read over an image of 4 faces lit by candlelight. My own china cabinet glowed behind me as I'd set my Thanksgiving table that year. But clearly, family no longer included me. My breath hitched. I pressed my thumb into the center of the screen and zoomed in on Sarah's eyes. They looked warm and sincere in that photo, yet also triumphant, as though she'd won something I didn't even know I'd lost. I put the phone down, swinging my legs over the bed. The sheets felt too cool, too empty. I padded barefoot to the living room, phone in hand, like a lantern guiding me through the dark. At the dining table, I flicked on a single lamp, its soft glow revealing the neatly folded napkins and the place cards still stacked in a corner, unused. I pulled out the chair and settled in. My mind churned. How long had this been going on? How many times had I swallowed my hurt with a polite smile? I'd always believed my family loved me. I'd been the heart of every gathering, the organizer of every celebration. And yet here I sat, surrounded by all the accoutrements of a party that never happened, scrolling through proof that I'd been deliberately left out. I opened a new note on my phone and began listing dates: April 12th, May 8th, July 4th. My thumb flew down the screen, jotting down every single event I had missed. As I typed, clarity settled around me. This wasn't scattershot, it was systematic. Sarah's planning oversights had become a pattern almost surgical in precision. My invitations were always rescheduled. My presence a misunderstanding, but no one ever admitted the truth they didn't want me there. A lump rose in my throat, but I refused to weep. Anger warmed in my veins, fueling each keystroke. If they had excluded me intentionally, then I would expose it. I'd show Michael the timeline, present him the data in stark contrast to his own calendar. I'd confront Sarah with the evidence of her deception. And above all, I would reclaim my place in this family, or else I would walk away and stop the silent bleeding of my heart. My fingers paused at the list. I read it aloud in the empty room. Missed brunch on Mother's Day. Missed Jack's soccer game. Missed Lily's dance recital. Missed Christmas dinner. Even naming them made my pulse quicken. I shifted in my seat, placing the phone on the table to stare at the half-empty lamp. Above me, the walls seemed to breathe in the stillness. A soft click signaled my front door unlocking too early for a family visit, too late for deliveries. I spun the chair around, but the hallway was empty. No footsteps approached. My heart hammered, but then slowed as the silence returned. Whoever it was must have changed their mind, or maybe it was just my imagination, spurred by exhaustion and candlelight. I returned to the list and added one final line: I will not be erased. My hand closed over the phone, the metal cool and unyielding. A new resolve anchored in my chest. I would gather every scrap of evidence. I would speak the truth out loud even if my voice trembled. And I would not let another invite slip through my hands without a fight. I closed the Notes app and locked the phone, setting it face down so I wouldn't be tempted to stare at Sarah's feed any longer. Standing, I stretched, feeling the tension in my shoulders unravel just enough to breathe more freely. The oven's timer dinged an echo of the roast from the birthday dinner that had never been. I sighed and padded to the kitchen, checking the fridge, finding only the cold cake wrapped in plastic. I opened the door and closed it behind me, the scent of stale chocolate greeting me. I pressed the cake plate to the counter and looked out the window into the backyard where silver moonlight pooled on the grass. In that quiet moment, grief and determination coalesced into something fierce. I would not let this year of silences define me. With that, I turned off the kitchen light and headed upstairs, stepping softly as if each footfall might wake the world. My bed beckoned with the promise of rest, but I knew sleep would elude me until I set my plan in motion. Tomorrow, I would begin weaponized with truth and unbowed by betrayal. Tonight, though, I held on to that steely resolve as tightly as one might clutch a lifeline in a storm. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains in soft slats as I sipped my coffee at the kitchen table, eyes still heavy with the night's revelations. My notes lay scattered beside me. Dates, times, screenshots, evidence of the year I'd spent erased from my own family's life. I had planned every next step, but nothing could have prepared me for the knock that came at 10 o'clock. It was a firm, hesitant rap, 3 quick taps that pricked at my nerves. My heart leapt, and I set my mug down so hard it rattled against the saucer. Visitors were rare these days. I glanced toward the front door, my mind racing. If it was Michael or even Sarah, surely they would have called first. Whoever it was hadn't called at all. I rose, smoothing my navy blue cardigan over my shoulders and brushing invisible lint from its lapels. With cautious steps, I crossed the entry hall and peered through the peephole. A man stood on the porch, mid-40s, dark hair, an anxious crease between his brows. He wore a rumpled suit jacket over a simple button-down shirt, his hands buried in his coat pockets. My breath caught. I didn't recognize him. Mrs. Harper. His voice was tentative when I opened the door a crack, the chain still fastened. Margaret Harper. I swallowed. Yes, I kept my tone cautious, but polite. May I help you? He shifted, glancing down at his shoes before meeting my eyes again. My name is Daniel Chen. I need to talk to you about your daughter-in-law, Sarah. His words struck me like a stone. My heart pounded against my ribs. I drew in my breath, opening the door a little wider but keeping the chain in place. About Sarah, I'm sorry, but I don't believe we've met. He nodded, voice low. No, we haven't. This might sound strange, but I knew you were here. I needed to find you. Please, come in, I said, stepping back. The chain clicked against the doorframe as he closed and secured it behind him. He hesitated in the entryway, surveying my foyer with quick, darting glances, as if memorizing every detail. His eyes settled on the cluster of family photos on the console table. Some were faded, but I saw Michael laughing with Jack and Lily on the beach, my own smile absent from those snapshots. I'm sorry to barge in like this, he said, rubbing his hands together. But I think your grandchildren may not be who you believe they are. My pulse skittered. A chill ran down my spine. I don't understand. He swallowed his Adam's apple, bobbing. I know this is abrupt, but I used to be in Sarah's life years ago before she met Michael. I lived with her, cared for her. We were in love. She left me, suddenly said she needed time to think. She never came back. He paused, collecting himself. I've been searching for her ever since. I took a step back, the morning's warmth slipping away. That doesn't involve me or my family. Daniel shook his head, urgency in his eyes. It does. I saw the photos of Jack on Instagram last week. He has a small scar on his chin from a bicycle accident when he was 4. It's the same scar I got when I was his age. He pointed, voice barely above a whisper. My mother showed me a photo once when I fell off my bike. The resemblance is uncanny. I blinked, heart thundering. Jack's scar was one of those small details I knew too well, the faint crescent line that ran just left of his chin. My breath caught in my throat. How could you know about that? He pulled a folded photograph from his jacket pocket and extended it to me with trembling fingers. This is me at 6. See the scar? He pointed to the identical mark. Then there's this. He reached into his coat again and handed me a worn folder. Inside were documents, a missing persons report, filed under Sarah's name, her maiden name, years ago. I recognized the headings, Sacramento County Sheriff's Department. She disappeared. I thought she'd been abducted. I never stopped looking. My hands shook as I traced the printout. Why bring this to me now? Daniel's gaze softened with something like pain. Because when I saw Jack's photo, your grandson, I realized he might be my son. And I couldn't stand by any longer. I came here to tell you the truth before anyone else did. Silence stretched between us, heavy and charged. I closed the folder and held it to my chest, breath coming shallow. This is a lot. He closed his eyes briefly, then opened them, resolve shining through his exhaustion. I've hired a private investigator. They matched Sarah's real name, Margaret Winters, to other records. She's been married twice before you and Michael. She left without explanation both times. My mind reeled. Sarah's sweet smile, her carefully managed household, her effortless control over every family event, it suddenly felt scripted. All of this? You think she's been hiding something from us? Daniel nodded. I saw her with Jack 3 months ago in the park, and I knew. I followed them out of concern, not malice, and I gathered evidence. And then I saw the posts from your birthday party you never had. I knew I had to come here. My grip tightened on the folder as a wave of betrayal washed over me. Not just the cruel exclusion I'd endured, but now the possibility that the little boy who called me grandma might not even belong to my family in the way I believed. My vision blurred. What do you want from me? He took a step closer, voice soft but unwavering. I want to protect Jack from being used, from living a lie. I want you to know the truth before I do anything else, because you deserve that much at least. My throat felt raw. I swallowed hard, nodding slowly. You're right. I do. Daniel exhaled relief, flickering across his face. He gave me one more steady look, an unspoken urgency that spoke of months of searching and heartache, and handed me a small envelope. Open this when you're ready. I stood in my foyer, the envelope burning cold in my palm. Daniel Chen's presence still there, quiet, but insistent. The sun had climbed higher, but I felt like I was standing on the edge of a precipice. As I watched him step back toward the door, I realized that nothing would ever be the same again. I led Daniel into my living room and motioned toward the sofa, every footstep echoing unnaturally in the quiet house. My heart pounded so loudly, I was certain he could hear it. He settled himself on the edge of the cushion, the worn manila envelope in his lap. I perched on the armchair across from him, clutching my cardigan, bracing myself for what came next. I brought more than that initial folder, Daniel said, pulling a thick binder from his satchel. He set it on the coffee table between us and clicked it open. The top page read, in neat type, investigation report, Margaret Winters, a.k.a. Sarah Harper. The name made me flinch. My daughter-in-law's real name, Margaret Winters, looked foreign on the page, like it belonged to someone else. I took a shaky breath. That's Sarah's name is Sarah Blackwood, I whispered. She changed it when she married Michael. Daniel nodded, flipping the page. According to school records and a birth certificate I obtained, she was registered as Margaret Winters until she was 27. Then she married a Robert Kim in Nevada. Divorce finalized 2 years later. Then she resurfaced here under a new name. He tapped a summary marriage to Robert Kim, Nevada, 2008-2010. Alimony awarded. No children. My chest tightened. I remembered Sarah's ease with money, her neat way of slipping bills into charity envelopes. I'd chalked it up to generosity. He turned the page again. Marriage to James Fletcher, Oregon, 2012-2014. Divorce filed citing irreconcilable differences. Child support awarded. My fingers tingled. I'd never known Sarah to mention a child support order. Every conversation about her past had been vague family drama, she'd called it, with a dismissive smile. Daniel continued, voice low. I found property records, public filings, even yearbook photos confirming her face, matched through the years. Each marriage ended quietly. She vanished afterward. He paused, meeting my eyes. Do you see why this concerns me? I swallowed eyes on the binder's pages. Because she might have done this before, I murmured the words catching in my throat. Used someone, moved on, erased. He nodded. Exactly. But there's more. He lifted a sheaf of printouts, a timeline comparing her relationships. On one side, Sarah's appointments, residences, and declarations over the past decade. On the other, Michael's. They never overlapped until late 2017 when she first met my son. Before that, there was no record of her in this town. No friends, no family events, no photos associated with her new name. Yet she told Michael she grew up here, that her own mother lived 2 blocks away. Daniel's finger hovered over a gap in the timeline. She moved here in May 2017. Married Michael in October. Announced pregnancy in January 2018. Jack was born in August. That pregnancy timeline matches her Nevada marriage ending and James Fletcher's divorce date. If she left him in early 2014 and didn't show again until she met Michael, that could be another pregnancy concealed. My breath caught. I glanced at the report page where someone had scrawled in red possible deception regarding pregnancy timeline. My stomach twisted. Jack's birth had been a moment of unbridled joy, his first cry echoing in my arms. But now doubt soured that memory. Daniel drew a folder from his coat lab reports from the private investigator. I had hair samples from Jack tested against a DNA database. There's no match with Michael's family. He paused, staring at me. But there's a strong match with another Chen line. That's how I knew I had to come to you. I felt the floor tilt. My hands flew to my mouth. No match with Michael. My voice was strangled. He shook his head, offering the folder. 99.7% probability that Jack is not Michael's biological son. My fingers trembled as I accepted the papers. The words blurred through tears I hadn't realized I was holding back. I closed the binder and pressed it to my chest. This can't be right, I said, voice cracking. None of it can be right. I remembered every smile, every tender moment with Jack, those bedtime stories, the way he pressed his face against mine. The idea that I'd been nurturing another woman's child as if he were my grandson felt like a knife twisting in my heart. Daniel reached over, placing a steady hand on mine. I know how it sounds. I know what this means. His gaze was full of sincerity, a mirror of my own shock. But I'd risk everything to know the truth. Because if this is real, Sarah has been weaving lies for years. I folded the report pages, smoothing creases I couldn't feel. And you believe she's done this twice before? My words were numb. With Robert Kim's money. With James Fletcher's. The repetition tasted like ash. He nodded slowly. And now, with Michael. I can't watch Jack grow up under false pretenses. A ripple of anger washed over me. Not at Daniel, but at Sarah for using these children as instruments in her schemes. My breath hitched as I struggled to gather my thoughts. What are you planning to do? I asked, though part of me already knew the answer. Daniel's expression hardened with determination. I want to confront her together if you'll have me. I want to ensure Jack's safety, that he knows his real father. And I want Michael to understand the full extent of her deception. My throat tightened at the thought of torturing my son with this betrayal. But the binder in my lap felt heavy with truth, and I realized that denying it would only deepen the wound. I straightened, pushing the papers forward. Then we need to act carefully. Michael trusts Sarah implicitly. If we go in recklessly, he might dismiss it as jealousy or worse, as a delusion. Daniel's profile softened. I know. That's why I came to you first. Because you're his mother and you know how to reach him. I met his gaze, gratitude flickering through my fear. All right, I whispered. Show me everything. I need to understand the full picture before I decide what to do. He nodded, flipping the binder back open and turning the pages with deliberate care. I leaned in mind racing with dread and resolve. The truth sprawled before me in black and white Sarah's secret identity, her pattern of manipulation, the timeline that betrayed her lies. My pulse thundered, but beneath it beat a determination as strong as steel. I would face this deception head on. For Jack, for Michael, and for the grandmother, I refused to let be erased any longer. I stared at the manila envelope on my coffee table as though it were a ticking bomb. My fingers trembled as I lifted the flap and drew out a single sheet of paper, slick and clinical looking, stamped with the logo of a certified lab. Daniel stood beside me, his eyes fixed on the document in my hand. The living room felt unreal sunlight pooled in corners. The distant hum of traffic filtered through the closed windows, but all I could sense was the paper's weight. I smoothed the sheet flat against my palm, inhaled sharply, and began to read. Paternity test report. Subject: Jack Michael Harper tested against Daniel Chen. Probability of paternity: 90.7%. My heart slammed against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat that threatened to burst free. I blinked my vision, swimming around the all-too-clear numbers. 99.7%. The words blurred as tears sprung to my eyes. "Daniel," I whispered, voice cracking. This can't be right." He reached out and placed a steady hand on my shoulder. "I know it's a lot to take in." I pressed the paper to my chest as if its simple facts could be muffled by the soft fabric of my cardigan. I sank onto the sofa, the envelope clutched in my lap. Every memory with Jack rushed back, his first steps, the way he'd nuzzle into my neck at bedtime, the laughter we'd shared over spilled cereal bowls. Looking down at the report felt like watching a murder scene unfold in slow motion, the life I thought I knew evaporating in a single damning statistic. Tears slid down my cheeks, warm and unwelcome. I scrunched the paper between my fingers, but Michael, my son, he's his father. He raised Jack from the moment he was born. My voice hitched and the sentences tangled together. He named him after his grandfather. How could it be anything else? Daniel knelt beside me, his expression painfully sympathetic. I believed the same thing. I wanted to dismiss the results, thought. Maybe there was a mix-up, but I double-checked. I had 2 independent labs run the test. Both matched. I closed my eyes, pressing a hand to my forehead. The prospect of confronting Michael with this shattered me. What if it's a mistake? I whispered. What if the sample got switched? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. They follow strict chain of custody procedures. There's a barcode on every sample. They logged Jack's hair sample straight from the barbershop to the lab. And my own DNA was collected under my signature. There's no room for error. I opened my eyes, focusing on the paper's stark print. 99.7%. I touched each word as though the ink held some secret remedy. That's almost absolute. A fresh wave of tears overcame me. I folded the report, gently cradling it like a wounded bird. I feel like I've been holding him wrong all this time. My voice cracked under the weight of betrayal and confusion. How do I look at his face now, knowing Michael isn't his father? Daniel sat on the edge of the sofa, leaning forward. You look at him the same way you always have. Love doesn't change because of biology. Jack is still that little boy who chases bubbles in the yard and laughs at knock-knock jokes. I blinked, picturing Jack's grin, the sun glinting in his curls. His love for me, his innocent trust, should that stay intact? My chest tightened. And what about Michael? How do I even approach him with this? Daniel's jaw tightened. Carefully. He trusts you, Margaret. He'll listen if you show him the facts. But I won't lie. It's going to devastate him. I lifted my chin, wiping my cheeks with the back of my hand. Grief and anger warred inside me. Anger at Sarah for orchestrating this deception at the children, for unwittingly caught in the middle at Michael, for being blind, and at myself for not seeing the signs sooner. But grief was stronger, a raw, pulsing ache. I folded the report once more and tucked it into the envelope. I need time, I said, voice steady, despite the tears. I need to think, to breathe. Daniel nodded, standing to give me space. I'll be outside if you need me. I watched him walk to the window and gaze out, his profile lined with concern. Alone with my thoughts, I placed a hand over my heart. The room felt too small for all the secrets it now held. I closed my eyes and let the silence press in around me. Memories flooded in uninvited the day Jack was born. Michael's tears as we welcomed him into the world. Lily toddling up the aisle at her dance recital. Christmas mornings with stockings and laughter. Each recollection now carried the sting of betrayal, as though they had all been staged under a falsehood. I opened my eyes and reached for my phone, scrolling to Jack's photos on my camera roll. There he was in his tiny pajamas holding a cupcake. There on our first fishing trip together, legs dangling over a dock. There in my arms on his first birthday, his sleepy smile half hidden. I tapped on one, zooming in on his scar, the same scar Daniel had mentioned. The realization knotted in my stomach that scar was the thread that bound Jack's story to Daniel's, unraveling every other thread I had woven around my family. My phone buzzed a message from Sarah. Mom, we're home tomorrow. Can we come over for dinner? The words seemed innocent, but they felt like salt in a fresh wound. I stared at the screen, uncertain whether to reply. Dinner at my house tonight. I had unpacked terror and revelation. Tomorrow I might be forced to reveal the truth. I locked the phone and slid it back into my pocket. Folding the envelope carefully, I tucked it into my cardigan pocket. I stood, shoulders squaring. The tears had dried, replaced by an icy resolve. I would not let this lie go unchallenged, nor let the children suffer further confusion. Crossing the room, I opened the front door. Daniel stepped in at my beckoning. His eyes met mine, expecting questions. I handed him the envelope. Daniel, thank you for bringing this to me. He took it. Relief mingling with anxiety in his expression. What will you do? I inhaled deeply, looking out at the morning light spilling across my porch. First, I'll steel myself. Then I'll call Michael. My voice was quiet, but firm. He deserves the truth. Daniel nodded. I'll stand by you. As he clasped my hand, I felt a spark of strength flicker to life. The truth was a cruel weight, but it was also my weapon, and I would wield it with care because my family's future fractured, though it maybe depended on it. I waited until the house was quiet before I pulled Daniel into the kitchen, careful not to wake the children's soft breathing from the guest room. The manila envelope and the binder of reports lay open on the counter like two sinister trump cards. My heart still hammered from reading the paternity results, but now a cold fury was settling in its place. Daniel, I began, voice low, we need to figure this out. We can't let Sarah gaslight Michael or these children any longer. I tapped the folder. He deserves to know the truth, but I won't let our grandson be blindsided. Daniel nodded, tightening his jaw. I agree. We need a plan that shields Jack and Lily from the fallout, at least until Michael can process it. They're innocent in all this. I leaned forward, running a finger along the list of dates I'd compiled. First, we need Michael alone. If Sarah sees us united, she'll deflect and manipulate. She's smart. She'll spin it so he thinks it's some conspiracy. I frowned. We need to catch her off guard. He met my eyes. How about a family dinner? Something casual where Michael won't suspect a thing. Invite them here for a normal night. He paused. But you'll have to handle Sarah. You know her better. Michael listens to you, a slow nod. Yes. I'll cook Michael's favorite pot roast garlic mashed potatoes. Tell them it's just a cozy Sunday supper. Get the kids to watch a movie in the living room. Then I'll present the binder and the paternity report. I shivered, imagining the moment I'd set those damning pages on the table. We need evidence laid out, not emotion alone. Michael trusts facts. Daniel drew in a breath. I'll be on standby just outside if you need backup. And if Sarah tries to flee or take the kids away, you call me immediately. I'll contact my lawyer to prep custody advice just in case. My stomach tightened at the thought of legal action, but his preparedness bolstered my confidence. Agreed. I want every last scrap of documentation ready, the marriage records, the divorce decrees, the private investigator's notes. Michael will need it if he decides to press charges or seek custody clarification. Daniel thumbed through the investigator's report. There's also the timeline correlation, her previous pregnancies and marriages. That shows a pattern. If we can show Sarah isn't a one-off, it underscores the deception was deliberate. I swallowed hard. Yes. We'll start with the paternity test, 99.7% probability. Then we'll roll out the rest piece by piece until there's no room for doubt. Michael won't be able to argue with that. He paused, gaze shifting to the staircase. What about the children? Once the truth comes out, they'll be confused. They need a stable answer. Grandma's here, Daddy. Michael still loves you, and there's another daddy who loves you too. His voice cracked slightly. We have to be gentle. Anger flared, then softened by concern. I placed a hand on his arm. We'll tell them after Michael regains his footing. For now, we protect their routine. Sunday dinner will feel familiar. Then once the adults have confronted it, Michael can decide how best to explain to Jack and Lily. Daniel gave a small, grateful nod. And once they're old enough to understand Daniel, he sighed, correcting himself. Daniel Chen can have a role in their lives. They deserve that fatherly bond. I exhaled the weight in my chest, shifting from despair to purpose. Right. This isn't about tearing the family apart. It's about rebuilding on honesty. Michael needs to know he's been lied to, but he also needs to understand that this family can still thrive if we're truthful. He flipped back through the binder. We should rehearse my testimony too. If Sarah accuses me of stalking or bringing false claims, I need to calmly explain the evidence trail, how I found her records, how I verified her identity, how I matched the hair samples. Good point, I said. We'll script the key points, your connection to Sarah, the private investigations, the DNA matches. Then we present everything in order with dates and signatures. Michael's a level-headed man. He'll see the logic. Daniel closed the binder and stood. I'll call my lawyer tonight, have him draft a custody advisory. You should prepare your own notes, maybe even write a letter to Michael explaining why you held back until you were sure. He'll need time to process any sense of betrayal from you as well. I felt a tight twist in my throat. You're right. I didn't tell him right away. I had to be certain of my facts. But I need to frame it so he knows I did it to protect him and the kids, not to sow distrust. He offered a gentle smile. He'll understand. He loves you. And we'll help him through it. I closed my eyes, picturing Michael's face. Confusion hurt. Then that fierce, protective love he always showed for his family. I pictured Jack and Lily bright and trusting, and the heartbreak they'd feel if this exploded without any support. All right, I said, voice firm. We'll do this Sunday. I'll send an invitation tonight, Sunday at 6, just Mom's pot roast. No mention of anything else. Daniel nodded. I'll be here at 5 to help you set up, and I'll be in the car park ready if anything goes sideways. I smiled, the first sign of hope I'd felt in days. Thank you, Daniel, for everything, for coming here, for believing me, for caring about Jack. My voice caught with emotion I refused to shed. I couldn't do this alone. He reached across the counter and squeezed my hand. You won't have to. As he walked to the door, I gathered the envelope and binder into my arms. My resolve shimmered sharp as a blade. This Sunday truth would take center stage. And when the dust settled, I would reclaim my family rooted in honesty, stronger for having survived the storm. I woke Sunday morning with a flutter of nerves as if my heart had decided to audition for a drum solo. But beneath the jitters was a steady undercurrent of purpose. Today was the day I would bring the truth home. I moved through my kitchen like a conductor readying an orchestra, each motion deliberate and precise. First, I scrubbed the dining table until the oak gleamed. Then I pulled out the good china cream-colored plates with a delicate gold rim that I'd only used on holidays. I unpacked crystal wine glasses, lining them up like soldiers on parade. The silverware came next, polished forks, spoons, and knives, each resting on a folded linen napkin in shades of soft ivory. I placed name cards at each setting, Michael, Sarah, Jack, Lily, and mine, Margaret. My handwriting trembled slightly as I wrote, but I forced each letter to remain elegant. As the sun climbed higher, I moved to the stove. The pot roast, my granddaughter Lily's favorite, was already searing in a heavy Dutch oven, the aroma of rosemary and garlic turning the kitchen into a cozy haven. I added carrots, celery, and onions, layering flavors as one might layer a story, each ingredient integral, each step building toward a revelation. The roast huffed as I closed the lid, settling into its slow simmer. A timer ticked patiently, counting down to the moment I would plate truth alongside dinner. Mid-afternoon, I flared the lights in the dining room, hanging gauzy curtains so the room glowed with gentle warmth. I lit 3 ivory candles in a silver candelabra at the center of the table. Their flames would dance shadows across the walls, lending intimacy to what might otherwise feel like an interrogation. I placed a small vase of fresh daisies, Jack's favorite, beside the candles. Innocent beauty I hoped would soften the blow. I double-checked the seating arrangement, smoothing the tablecloth one last time. My nerves hummed, but I reminded myself of the steps I and Daniel had planned. Welcome them, in, settle the children with a movie upstairs, then I would present the binder and the envelope on this very table. No raised voices, no dramatic pauses, just calm facts laid bare. Around 5:30, I heard the soft rev of Michael's car pulling into the driveway. My chest tightened. I took a deep breath, smoothing my navy blue dress one last time, and brushed a stray strand of silver hair behind my ear. I walked to the front door and peered through the glass. Michael was at the wheel, Sarah beside him, Jack bouncing in the back seat with Lily clutching her doll. Jack spotted me through the window and waved the confidence of a 7-year-old, untouched by secrets. His smile was like sunlight breaking through clouds. I opened the door with a practiced smile. "Welcome, everyone," I said, voice steady. "I'm so glad you could come." Michael stepped forward and hugged me. "Thanks for inviting us, Mom. It smells incredible in here." His warm embrace felt like home, comforting grounding. Sarah offered a quick kiss on my cheek. "Thank you for doing this, Margaret. You know how busy we've been." I nodded, inclining my head with understanding yet guarded relief. Come in. Please hang up your coats." I stood aside as they entered, Michael lifting Jack in for a hug, while Lily ran ahead toward the stairs. "Jack, Lily, I picked out a movie you both love. Why don't you head upstairs and Auntie will bring you some snacks in a minute." They grinned in unison. "Scooby-Doo," they chorused, rushing up the steps, two at a time. I watched them go, my heart swelling with both pride and sorrow. Innocence about to witness the collapse of illusions. Once the staircase was silent, I closed the hallway door and turned back to my son and Sarah, who were standing in the foyer. Michael hung his jacket and followed the scent of dinner to the living room. "It's cozy in here," he said, loosening his tie. He looked around appreciatively at the candles, and China glimpsed through the archway. "You've really outdone yourself." I smiled, folding my hands in front of me. "It's just pot roast, but it's special today." I paused, catching Sarah's eyes. She returned my look with a courteous smile, but I sensed something defensiveness, maybe even guilt, lurking behind her calm facade. I led them into the dining room. Michael pulled out a chair for Sarah, then sat across from her. The table looked perfect, as though it waited for a wedding feast. I took my place at the head, exhaling a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. "Everything looks wonderful," Sarah said, brushing at her dress. "Thank you, Margaret." "You're welcome," I replied, voice soft. "I hope you like this recipe. It's Michael's favorite." He nodded, his kindness a shield I desperately clung to. "It's perfect." I flipped the lid on the Dutch oven. Steam curled into the air, carrying the rich scent of slow-cooked beef. I ladled generous portions onto each plate, slices of tender roast pools of gravy and heaps of buttery mashed potatoes on the side. A hush settled over the table as I served. The children's laughter upstairs felt distant now, a reminder of why we were here. I placed a plate in front of Michael. "Dig in." Then I turned to Sarah, sliding her plate toward her. I saved the best for last. For a heartbeat, her eyes flickered with something unreadable anticipation, anxiety. Then she smiled politely. We began eating, the conversation light at first, talk of traffic, of work deadlines, of Lily's upcoming dance recital. But with each bite, I felt the tension coil tighter. My pulse drummed in my ears, but I knew it was time. Soon I would push the evidence across the table. Until then, I maintained the calm necessary to mask what came next. I cleared my throat, setting down my fork. "Michael, Sarah, there's something important I want to discuss tonight." My voice sounded firm even to my own ears, and their heads turned to me in unison. Sarah's expression went from curiosity to guarded. Michael leaned forward, concern knitting his brow. Their reactions told me I had them right where I planned, attentive, unprepared, and leaning on my words. "I've been doing some thinking," I continued, "about honesty and family." The candles flickered, drawing shadows across their faces. "There are some things I've discovered about Sarah's past and about Jack's paternity that I need you both to know." I paused, letting the weight of my words settle. Michael's hand moved to cover Sarah's. She looked at him, confusion and alarm dancing in her eyes. I took a deep breath, bracing myself for the moment I'd rehearsed 100 times. "I have some documents here." I nodded toward the binder and a paternity test report. My hand dipped to the envelope in my pocket that I believe you deserve to see. Their silence matched mine in intensity. The next beat of my heart would carry us into truth, and nothing would ever be the same. I placed the binder gently on the table between us, its leather cover a quiet promise of truths long concealed. Michael's fork hovered halfway to his mouth, and Sarah's eyes flicked from the pages to his face. Confusion etched in every line of her brow. I cleared my throat, my heart thudding in my chest like a drumbeat I could no longer ignore. "Michael, Sarah." I began, my voice calm but resolute. "You deserve to see these documents." I opened the binder to the investigator's report, flipping through the pages until I found the timeline I'd memorized, lists of marriage certificates, divorce decrees, name changes. I laid the folder flat, spreading the pages so they could read each header at a glance. This shows Sarah's real name, Margaret Winters, and her 2 previous marriages before she met you. Michael's face went white, his fork clattering against his plate. Mom, what is this? His voice trembled, disbelief bleeding through every syllable. I met his eyes steadily. It's everything I discovered with Daniel's help. I want you to read it for yourself. I turned the binder so he could see the scanned marriage records. Sarah's composure cracked, a flicker of panic crossing her face before she masked it with a thin smile. This is old news, she stammered. I told you about my past drama. I closed the binder and reached into the manila envelope beside me. My fingers brushed the envelope's edge before I slid out the paternity report. The paper felt impossibly heavy as I unfolded it and placed it on top of the investigator's documents. The lab logo glistened under the candlelight. I read aloud the key line, probability of paternity 99.7%. Jack Michael Harper, tested against Daniel Chen. Sarah's hand shot out toward the paper as if to pull it away. This can't be real, she whispered, her voice cracking like thin ice. There must be a mistake. Michael leaned forward, eyes fixed on the printed words, his face drained of color, his jaw clenching. Jack, my son. He swallowed as though the words stung his tongue. Mom, why would she do this? His gaze flicked to Sarah, whose eyes were now brimming with tears. Sarah's facade collapsed. She drew in a shuddering breath and glanced at me, her voice small and shaky. Margaret, this isn't how I wanted you to find out. I held up a hand, my own emotions warring beneath the surface. Sarah, I gathered these documents because Michael deserves the truth before you spin another story. You've been telling us that Jack was Michael's son since the day he was born. My voice was firm, edged with hurt, but these papers say otherwise. Michael's horror rippled through him. He looked at me, eyes glassy. Mom, what do I do? His voice cracked, and he pressed a trembling hand to his forehead. I could see the betrayal tearing at him from both sides. I slid the paternity report toward him. Read it. Michael. His hand shook as he picked up the paper and scanned the lines again. His breathing grew ragged. It can't be true, he whispered. We named him. We raised him. It doesn't change who he is, I said quietly, but it changes what you know. You need to decide how to move forward. Sarah stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. You don't understand, she cried, voice rising. I needed security. I made mistakes, but he's Michael's son in every other way. Her words tumbled out, jagged and frantic. He has our memories, our love. How can you throw all that away over a piece of paper? Michael looked between us, torn and anguished. Sarah. He began, voice small, then cut himself off. He stared at the binder at the report, as though the ink might scald him. His eyes filled with tears. Mom, I'm so confused. I closed my eyes briefly, then reopened them with clear determination. It's not about throwing Jack away. It's about acknowledging the truth so you can protect him. I turned to Sarah, keeping my voice calm. You lied about your identity and your past. You manipulated our trust. That isn't a mistake, it's a pattern. Sarah's breath caught tears spilling down her cheeks. She looked to Michael, her voice cracking. I did what I thought I had to do to keep my life together. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. Her shoulders sagged, exhaustion and guilt intertwining. Michael rose unsteadily to his feet, moving around the table so he stood between us. He looked down at the paternity report in his hand, then up at Sarah. All those family moments were lies. His voice was thick with pain. Every birthday I celebrated, every milestone I shared, was built on deceit. Sarah's lips trembled. I never wanted to hurt him, she sobbed. But I was scared of being alone, of not being enough without that security. Michael shook his head, tears glistening in his eyes. I chose you, Sarah. I trusted you. His voice broke. And I've been blind. I stood as well, taking a step closer to my son. Michael, this is devastating. But you're not blind anymore. You have the truth. I rested a hand on his shoulder. You can decide what to do next. He looked at me, anguish and resolve warring in his gaze. I need time, he said, voice steadier. I need to process this. He set the paternity report back on the table, covering the investigator's files beneath it. Sarah, we'll talk later. Sarah sank to her knees beside him, reaching for his hand. Please, Michael. Her plea was lost in the stillness that engulfed us. I turned slightly away. My own tears held at bay by a dam of resolve. My blue dress felt too tight, my chest too full. I watched my son cradle his wife's hand, his shoulders shaking with sobs. The children's laughter upstairs, a comfort earlier, was now a cruel reminder of innocence teetering on the brink of confusion. I drew in a shuddering breath, lifting my chin. The room trembled with the aftermath of my revelation, horror in Michael's eyes. Sarah's faltering composure and my own heartbreak laid bare. And in the hush that followed, I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. 6 months have passed since that night of shattered truths, and I wake now to the sound of little feet padding down the hallway. Sunlight spills through the kitchen window, warm and welcoming, just as it was the morning I decided never to be erased again. I set down my coffee mug and push open the door to find Jack and Lily. Jack in silver pajamas, too small. Lily clutching her raggedy doll, bickering over who gets the first pancake. Grandma, he's hogging the syrup, Lily complains, pointing at Jack's sticky fingers. He only wants half. Jack retorts, voice muffled by his mouthful of waffle. I lean against the doorframe, amusement blooming in my chest. This is home. Their laughter rings out like a hymn of healing, echoing off the walls of a house no longer haunted by secrets. I brush a hand over my navy cardigan, the one I wore the night I demanded honesty, and remind myself how far we've come. Hey, you two, I say, stepping in. Jack leaps up and races to the counter where a stack of pancakes awaits. I drizzle syrup from the very bottle they fought over, careful to leave half for Lily. She beams at me. Thank you, Grandma, she says, patting her doll as if it might speak gratitude too. I scoop up Jack's plate and set it before him. He looks up, eyes bright. Grandma, can Uncle Daniel come today? He asks, voice hopeful. I feel that familiar tug in my heart, the protective grandmother in me, and smile. He's coming, I promise. He'll be here by noon. Daniel Chen, once the stranger at my door, is now part of our Sunday tradition. He and Michael have woven a new tapestry of family, where love isn't limited by bloodlines, but expanded by honesty and choice. Later, as I pull the roast from the oven, Michael steps in to help. He wipes his hands on a towel and gives me a quick kiss on the cheek. Smells amazing, he says, voice warm and easy. You outdid yourself again. I brush away a stray hair. You know how I feel about our Sunday dinners. My smile falters only for a fraction of a second, remembering how brittle our bond once was. Now it's tempered, like steel, strong, reliable. Jack and Lily scamper past us, chasing each other to the living room, where Daniel is already seated on the couch, reading to them from a dog-eared picture book. Daniel's presence feels natural here, his voice animated as he does funny voices for all the characters. Their giggles fill the house, and I catch Michael's eye across the kitchen. We exchange a grin, unspoken gratitude for this unconventional but loving family dynamic. I set the table with the good china, yes, the same gold-rimmed plates, and arrange fresh daisies in a simple vase. The candles from that fateful dinner are back in their silver candelabra, but today they symbolize warmth and welcome, not confrontation. Daniel enters, shaking off a light drizzle from the spring rain. His hair is damp, but his smile is as bright as ever. "Wow, Margaret," he says, taking in the table. "It looks perfect." I step aside so he can hug me. "Thank you for being here for everything." My voice catches with emotion. He squeezes my shoulders. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Michael appears behind him, draping an arm around Daniel's shoulders. "Grandma's cooking keeps us coming back," he teases, and the corner of Daniel's mouth quirks in a genuine laugh. We gather around the table 5 places now. Michael, Daniel, me, and 2 small seats for Jack and Lily with specially printed name cards they designed themselves. I reach across to join hands with both men. Before we eat, I say softly, "I just want to say thank you. Thank you for fighting for the truth, for believing in family, no matter how unconventional it looks. I love you both." Michael's eyes glisten. "We love you too." Daniel nods, voice steady. "Grandma, you saved us." I feel a warmth spread through my chest, an ember of joy that glows brighter than any candle. "Okay," I say, smiling at the children. "Roast beef's getting cold. See." Conversation flows easily as we pass around platters, succulent meat, buttery potatoes, honey-glazed carrots. Jack proudly tells us about his school play. He's playing the lead role in The Wizard of Oz, and can't wait for Uncle Dan and Daddy Michael to come. Lily interjects with news of her ballet recital, prancing a pirouette in her seat that sends Daniel and Michael into delighted applause. Between bites, Michael glances at Daniel and me. "I never imagined we'd be doing this," he admits, voice low, "but I wouldn't change a thing." Daniel shrugs, grin broadening. "Family is family," he winks at me, "even when it's expanded." I nod, letting the words settle. We talk about future plans, school projects for Jack dance classes, for Lily, a joint family trip next summer to the lake. The ideas bounce around the table, weaving our lives closer together. After dessert, apple pie with vanilla ice cream, another Sunday staple, I lead the children upstairs to gather their things. They scamper off, and I return to the table where the 2 men remain, leaning back in their chairs. "I'm proud of you both," I say quietly, meeting their eyes. "You stood for what's right even when it was hard." My voice trembles with gratitude. Michael reaches across and squeezes my hand. "You, Mom, are the heart of this family. You held us together." He glances at Daniel. "I'm glad we did this together." Daniel's expression is tender as he adds, "I've gained so much more than I ever expected. A son, a partner in parenting, and a grandmother who never gave up." I laugh, tears pricking at the corners of my eyes. The fragility of those early weeks feels like a distant memory now, a nightmare dissolved by daylight. Today, our home is full of laughter, love, and the promise of many more Sundays to come. As I clear the table, I find myself humming an old tune, one my mother used to sing. I realize that the melody of our family has changed key, but the heart of the song remains the same. We are together, and we belong. And that is more than enough. I padded down the hallway in my slippers, the soft carpet muffling each step, as I headed toward the living room. The house was quiet now, only the gentle hum of the refrigerator and the distant tick of my grandfather clock marking the passage of time. I flipped on the lamp beside my favorite armchair, its warm glow spilling across the hardwood floor. Tonight, I wasn't expecting anyone. The family had long since retreated to their own homes for the week, busy with work and school. And for the first time in months, I savored the solitude. I sank into the armchair and wrapped a cozy shawl around my shoulders. My gaze drifted to the mantel, where a new framed photograph stood, Michael, Daniel, Jack, Lily, and me all grinning wide in front of the elephant enclosure at the zoo last month. Jack perched on Daniel's shoulders, Lily clasping my hand, Michael standing protectively beside us. It was a portrait of the family we had become, imperfect, unconventional, but undeniably real. A gentle smile curved my lips as I traced the image with my eyes. I remembered the laughter that afternoon, how Jack had clamored to feed the giraffes, and Lily had shrieked in delight when a baby elephant splashed water at her. Daniel had caught it all on his phone, and we'd collapsed into giggles over each other's reactions. That day and every Sunday since had been proof that truth could rebuild what deception had tried to destroy. I reached out and touched the frame, feeling the glass's cool edge. 6 months ago, I would never have imagined this moment. Back then, I lay in my cold bedroom upstairs, replaying every slight, every party I'd missed, wondering if I was losing my grip on my own family. Now I felt grounded, rooted in honesty and unconditional love. My thoughts drifted to the night I confronted Sarah and Michael. I could still feel the tremor in my voice as I laid the paternity report and investigators' files on my dining table. I remembered Michael's horror, his hands shaking as he read the words, 99.7% probability of paternity. I recalled Sarah's faltering composure, how the mask of perfection slipped to reveal a woman terrified of exposure. And I remembered my own steady voice cutting through the silence. You deserve the truth. That truth had been a torrent, painful, explosive, unstoppable. It had ripped through our lives, exposing raw wounds and shattering illusions. But in the wreckage, something stronger took root, the capacity to forgive, the courage to rebuild, the determination to redefine family on our own terms. I closed my eyes and let the memories wash over me. I was proud of myself. Proud that I refused to be erased. Proud that I fought not just for myself, but for Jack's right to know his heritage, for Michael's right to live in honesty, for Daniel's right to claim his son. And most of all, I was proud of the love that endured beyond betrayal. Silence enveloped me, but it was not empty. It was filled with possibility. I pictured our living room on a Sunday morning. Daniel's voice doing character accents, Michael sharing stories from his week, the children bouncing between us like sparks of sunshine. I pictured future milestones, Jack's school graduation, Lily's dance recitals, holiday gatherings, where diapers might be swapped for driver's licenses and tea parties for friendly debates over politics. Every event, big or small, would be celebrated with open hearts and open truths. I glanced at the stack of thank you notes I'd started drafting for those who'd supported us, friends, who offered listening ears, the private investigator who had worked tirelessly, even the lawyer who guided us through custody questions. Gratitude warmed me from the inside out. It reminded me that even in the darkest valley of deceit, kindness and solidarity had found me. A soft knock on the door startled me. I set my shawl aside and rose to answer. It was only the night breeze nudging it closed behind me. I chuckled quietly and locked the door again, relishing the sanctuary I'd built. No surprises now, only the steady rhythm of a home lived in truth. Back in my chair, I sipped the last of my tea, the flavor of chamomile calming every frayed edge of my spirit. I placed the empty cup on the side table, then leaned back, gazing at the ceiling as if it held answers in its plastered expanse. In the hush, I made a silent promise to never let deceit creep between us again, to nurture the bonds of trust like tender seedlings in my heart, to remain vigilant, present, and steadfast. A soft smile spread across my face as I thought of the future of laughter and tears of challenges we would face together, of love that would continue to grow in new and unimaginable ways. The road here had been rocky, but I had emerged stronger, braver, and more certain than ever that family defined by truth was built on rock, not sand. I closed my eyes, letting the warmth of hope fill me. Tomorrow would bring Monday routines, soccer practice for Jack dance class, for Lily work meetings, for Michael calls and texts for Daniel, and perhaps another cozy dinner invitation waiting on my refrigerator. But tonight, I rested in the knowledge that this house, this family now thrived in the light of honesty and unconditional love. And so I settled into the quiet content in my armchair, at peace with the past, and filled with anticipation for every sunlit morning and starry night to come.